Welcome to Takeaways, Life Lessons Learned. Hi, Kevin Burke.
Good afternoon.
My guest today is Kevin Burke, big macher in the construction industry. Do you know what a macher is?
I do not.
It's a Yiddish word. It's like big boss.
Okay.
So CEO.
Well, I'll take the compliment.
It is a compliment. CEO of Burke Construction and co-founder of Matter Real Estate Group. It's like you have two jobs.
I do. Essentially one big skill set, but two obviously separate companies, yes.
It's a good way to put it. We'll get more into Burke and more into Matter. But to keep it going, you were born in Kansas, graduate from Kansas State University, bachelor's degree in mechanical engineering, and a minor in business management. So you worked as an intern and engineering assistant at Wolf Creek Nuclear Power. What does an intern and engineering assistant at a nuclear power place do?
Well, I did that when I was in college. So I worked 2 summers, 2 Christmases. The first summer we were finishing construction, and then the second summer and Christmas we were taking on uranium, so taking on power. So essentially, I worked for the electric utility, supervising the contractor. So you're doing various tests and monitor construction. And then, of course, when we were bringing on uranium, everything changed. The security profiles changed, but an incredible experience to be on a project that big.
I'm imagining suits, big gloves.
Negative.
No.
Yeah, no. Jeans, you're out in the...
No, not like suits. I mean, like for the nuclear thing.
Yeah, no.
Like on The Simpsons.
No, yeah, not to that extent. You have dosimeters on, so anywhere you go in the building, you have to have your radiation checked several times a week just in case there was some issue. But an incredible experience. I mean, the size and girth of a project like that, it's hard to describe. But an incredible, opportunity to do that as a kid in college.
Did you see the uranium?
I was in the containment building, and you actually see the uranium in the rods under the water. I was able to see that because I had access into the operations control room. You don't physically see it. You see it on monitors in the control room.
Fascinating.
Yeah.
All right. From there, you went to Procter & Gamble as an industrial chemicals engineer.
Right. So that was my first position out of college. So it's essentially... I was in a business unit within Procter & Gamble. It's amazing. Procter & Gamble was a multinational company, and how nimble and entrepreneurial they were. So I was in an industrial chemicals business that sold internally to Procter & Gamble, but then also sold to the merchant market. So effectively what I was a development manager. We were on a industrial chemical site, big industrial processing plant, but we were always constantly innovating and adding new processes. So part of that is managing engineers, doing part of the research to understand what the engineering needed to be able to produce the product. So it was. I look back on that time period at P&G. It was in the glory years of P&G. We would work 80 to 90 hours a week and loved every minute of it. You were learning so much, probably not the most responsible thing they did, give a bunch of kids the responsibility they did, but needless to say, it was a great opportunity.
Literally 80 to 90 hours a week?
Yes. We would work, you'd show up, let's say 6 or 7 in the morning, you'd work all day, have dinner, and then you go back to work if you weren't traveling.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So from there, you got into construction management, first at Procter, then at Burke & Associates.
Yeah, if you think of when I first got into construction, I worked out when I was going to school at Kansas State. My first 2 summers were out here in Las Vegas for a steel contractor. So that was construction. And then I worked at Wolf Creek, which is essentially, I wasn't doing construction, but supervising construction. And then, of course, at P&G, it was all about development and construction. So it was a really easy transition to get or to transition over to a pure construction company. And I did that. My first role when I left P&G, Procter & Gamble, as I was with our companies down in Texas. So that's where I actually started, was in our Texas operation.
Oh, wow. Is it true you have a one-man show called Defending the Caveman?
Yeah, I hear it's good. It is not. It's not. I don't have a side hustle, so and I'm not that funny. So But I haven't seen it.
You know what I'm talking about?
Oh, I do know.
It's a sarcastic question.
I hear it. I hear it occasionally.
So I Googled you, and Kevin Burke comes up, a one man show called Defending the Kidman right here in Las Vegas on this trip.
Yeah.
You should go. He should let you come and sit in the front row.
We should. We'll see if he's Irish or not.
All right. In your bio, there's a lot about Burke. There's a little bit about you, but then there's these sections about volunteer work. Big section on that. There's some recognitions and there's some charities that you're involved with. So in no particular order, let's say a few of these. You could talk about whatever you're interested in talking about. So Kansas Board of Trustees and College of Engineering Advisory Council. Those are separate things?
They are. Yeah. So I'm really passionate about higher education. So I served on 2 boards at Kansas State, one on the Board of Trustees for a number of years. And then I spent most of my time essentially on the Board of Directors for the College of Engineering. Kansas State's has a big STEM program. It's a land grant school, so it focuses on agricultural and then, of course, science, technology, math. The engineering college there, I think it's about 3,500 students, has 11 departments, including nuclear engineering there. So it's a big part of the university, actually the largest college within the university. So spent a lot of time with them. I've actually just termed out a couple of years ago after I think I did three-year terms with it, but an incredible opportunity to spend time in higher education and which is obviously completely different than what I do for a job.
4-time appointee by the governor of Nevada as chairman of the Nevada State Contractors Board. 4 times by the same governor, 4 times by different governors. How does that work?
Yeah, different governors. So initially it was Gibbons, Governor Gibbons, 2 appointments by Governor Sandoval, and 1 appointment by Governor Sisolak.
How does Lombardo feel about you? Not yet. Huh?
Well, I would say any board, you just don't want to make it a career. I think that's a mistake. I think go in, give it 100%. That can't last forever. Do good work and then step off and let somebody else take the baton.
So what does someone like you, who's a private business owner, construction guy, do as the chairman of the Nevada State Contractors Board?
Well, the Contractors Board is essentially in charge of, think of it as governance and policy for the construction industry. It's a state agency, but it runs, for the most part, independent of the state. And so there's 7 board members that essentially set policy and governance within the organization. There's 16 to 17,000 licensed contractors. And then we work with our neighboring states, in particular California, because we have a lot of cross-border initiatives. And so that's what you do. You get drawn into a lot of different things, though, on that board, especially in the downturn in the economy. That was a very difficult time to be on that board and just see the pain that was in our industry. I saw it, not only did we experience it in our own business, but you could just see the pain that the contractors, subcontractors were going through during that time period. You also served as a board member for the Contractors Board? Is that separate from the chairmanship? I was actually chairman for 4 years, and then you rotate off into a board. As long as you have your active appointment by the governor, then you sit on the board, and then the various subcommittees within the Spent a long time in that. I did. It's an important. I believe it's important to give back to the industry that you're benefiting from, and that was certainly really what drove me, what really motivated me to do that. Yes, honorary group commander at Creech Air Force Base. Yeah. What is that? My father was career military, Air Force, and that's what, if I could have a second life, I was actually on track before I went to Kansas State to go to the Air Force Academy. I wish I could have done that, but so I had a good friend that was a colonel at Creech, and he was full-time pilot for United, but then he came back full-time in the reserves. Air Force Academy grad, done multiple tours overseas. and I was just a sidekick. So what you essentially do, and there's many people that serve this role at Creech and Nellis, is you're essentially the liaison to the community. So if there's a problem with one of the young airmen, it could be, in this case, if they get deployed, you got to be there for their family. Some of it's fundraising. Some of it, every once in a while, they get themselves into a little bit of trouble that you got to help them get out of. But so that's what you do. It was just that was one of those things that you look back and that was really just selfish out of me. I just love spending time out there with the airmen, and there's so much. I would say parallels between leadership is leadership, right? Whether you're in the military or in private sector, really, really bright people in the military. I wish, it was Brent Caldwell. I wish he knew anything about construction because I'd want him to be in my company. He's the guy that you would follow anywhere. And that was just the nature of so many people that serve in the military.
Perch board of directors. This is the high-end furniture venture.
It is, yeah. So I was
so we should say before you jump in there. So Jim Stewart, your partner in Matter,
right?
He was on this podcast. He did talk about Perch and that part of his life. So you were on the board with him.
I was the fourth person in, right? So we. It is a great experience. It didn't end so well. I'm sure Jim covered that, but I would say private equity overfueled that company, and just unfortunately they couldn't take the speed and pace of which they were trying to run. Capital wasn't the issue. It was just being able to, open stores, hub and spoke, distribution. It's a complicated business, and I think we put a little too much high octane fuel into the tank.
He didn't get into that part of it. He focused more on in the retail stores, there were showers that people may or may not have gotten naked in.
There is truth to that. So when I became part of that board, I thought, well, look, I can sit with store development, and essentially we staffed the store development. Store development had a very small group. I think there was only 3 of them, and we were doing stores across the country. And so my construction company, Burke Construction, staffed a number of those positions as we were going across the country. It was great fun and a great learning experience for us.
So for someone maybe who didn't hear that or doesn't know what Perch is, give me the high level.
Yeah, it's a consumer products company, so it focuses on kitchen, bath, outdoors. So if you're going to do a new home, all things kitchen, all the appliances, including, we had La Cornue, which is the creme de la creme in ranges. We had one in the New York showroom that was painted in the Ferrari factory. It was Ferrari red. A range like that could be $175,000. So
wow.
We had very high end appliances, and then same thing with the bath. All things bath and accessories, and then outdoor was mainly kind of barbecues. But a very innovative concept where you could literally come into the store and try everything. So that's the problem. It's like when you want to go buy a car. Let's say it's a high-end car, they ask you, can you drive it? And if they say no, it's like, wait a minute, I'm going to buy this expensive car and I can't drive it. Same thing with these, these appliances. The whole store was activated. So you could cook on anything. You could go into the shower, as Jim mentioned, and try every shower head. There had to be 30 or 40 live shower heads. Well, a great way to shop, right? It was very experiential.
As opposed to, I like how that looks. Like exactly. I want to see the performance of it.
Yeah, exactly.
Cool concept.
Yeah.
All right. There's a few more here. I'll rattle them off. We can circle back to anyone that jumps out for you. Executive board member of Las Vegas Metro Chamber of Commerce and the Building Investment Committee for the Metro. Is that what?
Yeah, it did that a number of years ago. Served with Kara Kelly and Steve Hill. Big fan of Steve Hill. And I was on Steve's executive committee when he was chairman.
Tau Beta Pi National Engineering Society, Pi Tau Sigma Mechanical Engineering Society.
Yeah, those are more just associations.
After college associations?
Yeah,
or
in college and after, both.
Board of Directors at the Nevada Contractors Association, That's different than the Nevada State College or Contractors Board.
Correct. Yeah.
That's the General Contractors Association.
Right. It's the largest trade organization.
Never president of that? Just board of director?
No.
Come on, Kevin.
Yeah.
Have you ever been asked? I'm sure.
Multiple times. Right.
And UNLV Foundation Board of Trustees.
So new to the Board of Trustees, I spent probably 15 years at Kansas State, and I hope to be able to take that experience. I'm new to the board, maybe a year and a half on the board to UNLV. Very, again, passionate about higher education. My wife and daughter both went to UNLV, so I think I can make a difference, especially on scholarships and fundraising, because Kansas State is really good at it because they don't have a choice. I mean, they have to be great at fundraising. Every year at Kansas State, all the colleges in Kansas State, KU, and Wichita State University, they get cut farther and farther from the state. So you've got to be really good at raising, outside funds, and that whole private partnership that you have to have. You've got great students, and you got to figure out how to effectively monetize those in the private sector and get them to help fund.
So you had one recognition that I saw on your bio, Carl R. Rice College of Engineering Fellow. That's a recognition or not a recognition?
It's a recognition. Yeah.
Okay.
It's just
What is that?
time at Kansas State. They recognize, service to the university, and then also, accomplishments in your professional career. So I have that. And then one of the reasons why this took so long for us to get together, I had a pretty busy summer, and I've been now nominated to be in the College of Engineering Hall of Fame. So that will happen in March of 25 now.
Congratulations.
Well, thank you.
Is that a known thing?
It is known now, but it hasn't happened, but will happen. Let's put it that way.
That's a big deal.
And I would say pretty improbable. Leave it at that.
All right. That's a story for the Hall of Fame.
That's
got it.
Yeah.
All right. Then you have some charities: Construction vs. Cancer, Boys and Girls Club of Southern Nevada, and the Las Vegas Rescue Mission. Any comments on those?
No, we as a company have the list of charities that we've given to over the 40 years now that we've been here is very, very long, right? As it should be. So those are just a handful of the current charities we support.
So I appreciate you letting me go through this, because I'm in a way painting a picture of who you are. It's easy to just jump in and say CEO of Burke Construction. Let's talk about what you build and what you do.
Yep.
But that's not the full picture. So this to me was a big part of the picture. So I appreciate that. And now we can kind of fly through a little bit more. Speaking about who is Kevin: a general contractor, a developer, an engineer, a triathlete, a tequila collector, a former farmer, I understand, an adventure traveler, and you mentioned husband and a father. So anything inaccurate there?
Mainly or mostly injured triathlete.
Injured?
Yeah.
You have to do it to get injured. So I'm sure there's some accomplishments along the way. So officially welcome to Takeaways, Kevin.
Thank you.
How you feeling?
Good.
How did you get into collecting tequila?
So interesting story. I had one of our superintendents, David Lopez, is from Jalisco. So that's the state in Mexico where tequila or agave is grown for tequila. And he was somewhat of a collector. I'm going back now 20 years ago. And I've always been a fan, but I didn't know anything about it. And so he would go back home to see his family a couple times a year, and I would send him cash to go there and say, pick out something, but come back with a bottle in the story from where it was made. Now, this is before tequila really hit mainstream, and there's so many bottles out there now, mainly overpriced. So we started, and I want to say this is really part of his collection, because he would go over and bring it back. And then I started collecting it and putting my wine room. And right now, today, I have more tequila in my wine room than I have wine.
Is there a bottle or two that you're really proud of or excited about?
It's like wine in a way, or probably scotch. You collect them, and it's just for me. I think of the ones that really put the smile on my face are the people that I had it with last that I really enjoyed, and that's how I think of it. So, but one of my favorite ones is Partia Elegante, and I've had that with my two partners on a number of occasions. Probably a little too much Partia Elegante, but that one always.
If you're opening that one, I imagine there's a good reason for it.
There is. Exactly.
It's not just a sip,
right?
A sip or two.
It helps get through the development process. Let's put it that way.
I guess there's two reasons to open it, right? One is you're celebrating something. One is something maybe is challenging, and you need
you need to you need to remind yourself what's important.
So I never got into wine where I could open a wine menu at a restaurant and say, oh, this one's really good, and this one's from here, and tell you about this one. You drink a glass of wine, it's like, oh, it's good, or I don't know that there's bad wine unless it's gone bad, but it's like, it's either, wow, that's kind of like an epiphany, or it's good wine, but it never like registered.
Yeah.
Whiskey did. I got into whiskey a few years ago, and I know the difference between a wheated bourbon and not, or rye, or this, or I could tell you what you're about to taste before you taste it. So I can appreciate tequila. Tequila also, I enjoy it. There's some that I like. It doesn't like register for me like it does for you.
Yeah.
But it's pretty cool that you have your collection that you've built up. So another quick story. I'm at a gala at Miriam Adelson's house, this organization that we're a part of, and we get seated at a table of couples similar to our age. And my wife and I are sitting next to a nice couple to our left. Never met them before. We struck up a conversation, the typical stuff. Where are you from? What do you do? Came up that I do commercial real estate. The young woman asked, do you know my dad? Well, I don't know. Who's your dad? Kevin Burke. And I start laughing. So it was your daughter that I was sitting next to randomly. And then she said, of all the things that she could have said about you and you and her dad, it was, he has the most insane morning routine every morning, like your physical morning routine. So I have to ask, what is your morning routine?
So I'm a big fan of the book now, Outlive by Peter Attia. And I really follow that every morning. So I get up very early. I get up usually at 4:30, if not before. And then, it's just a very set regimen of doing cardio, and then doing weights, and then stretching and some core work. And my daughter, who still lives with us, she knows that is my time in the morning. And if you get up early, you got to stay out of my personal space, because that's my own time. And if I had to get up at 3, I'd get up at 3. But 4:30 to about 6 that's the time is pretty sacred.
So it takes you an hour and a half to get through this. It's all physical?
Yeah, all physical. Right. Yeah.
Are you in the ice baths? Are you doing the sauna stuff, or not yet?
I've looked into that, but not into that yet. Who knows, one day. It looks painful.
You think?
The ice baths.
Someone might say waking up at 4:30 to engage in an hour and a half routine every single morning looks painful.
Yeah, it
a different kind of pain.
Yeah, exactly.
So how did you get onto this? Someone gave you the book, or was it something that led you to it?
It's well, you do marathons, right? You're a marathon runner, right? So I used to do triathlon. Oh, it seems like I was always a hurt, and especially on the running side. I'm not a great swimmer, but I was always a strong cyclist. And then I'd sign up for events. I've done some really more long course related things, with respect to that, especially on the cycling side. And to me, you got to have something to train for. And I was just wandering. I was just be training, and there was no purpose to it. And then a friend of mine gave me this book, and it just really resonated with me that it's a study of centenarians, essentially what it is. And then he goes through and debunks.
That's people that live to 100.
100, right. And then he debunks a lot of things about the gimmicks and out there in terms of training and all that. And so it just really resonated with me. And I needed to train for something. I had to have a purpose and get up instead of just go to the gym and do a workout. And so I'll do this for a while until I, try something else.
What are you training for now?
I think it's just candidly, I need to train, just with work. And I think a lot of professionals would benefit from this is if I don't train, the stress can be overwhelming. So I have to do that for myself. And then it keeps everything in balance. But if I don't have an outlet, that stress will build up and it's just not healthy. So I get up, it's 6 days a week. I don't miss. It's just important to me, but it's also important. I feel healthier and I feel sharper that I'm training in this manner. So
in running, it's like your best training partner is a bib, meaning you sign up for a race. So you have that thing to train for, it's going to be on this date. It's this distance and I have to train for it. You don't really have a bib per se.
Correct.
Do you have something else that you're saying, this is my destination, or is it more couched it as?
No, it's a great, I think I'm trying to get more competent in doing this. I've still got, several steps to go to get to where I'm really in a good rhythm. I don't like doing lower body work. I do that on the bike and I'm just not a fan of it. And I need to,
so really in your mind, it's like what gets you up at 4:30 when you maybe, the mental resistance sets in. You're like, oh, maybe I'm not going to get. It's really just to improve it on what you're doing.
Well, right. And I think it's also knowing that if I don't put that investment in, my business will suffer. And I don't say that to be sensational. I say it because it's true.
Yeah, I get that.
It's just if you work the kind of hours that it takes to run businesses these days, if I don't have that, and I've been in that spot, right? And it's just not healthy and you got to get out of it. And otherwise you could start doing things that are really not healthy. Like drinking too much tequila.
All right. Before we get too far in, you mentioned your wife and daughter.
Yeah.
Tell me about them.
Yeah. Wife, we actually yesterday celebrated our 25th wedding anniversary. So fantastic.
Congratulations.
Yeah.
Wow.
So wife is originally from Madrid, Spain. Moved here when she was 17. And then we have one daughter who is works for Play Studios, Andrew Pascal's company, loves the company. And so it's just the three of us and we're super close. And my wife and daughter couldn't be any closer.
That's very cool. So I ask everybody this question. I'm curious your answer. What has been the single most influential thing or event in your life that shaped you the most?
Yeah, I would say, so my brother founded the company in 1984 and we lost him in 2002. He was an avid cyclist, unfortunately got hit when he was cycling.
I'm sorry.
And that was it was a defining moment, not only professionally, personally, brother. And so that, for me was it. It changed, I would say it changed a lot, but, I would say from a business standpoint, we just doubled down. And I say that was probably the most defining, event to not only get through, but then get to the other side.
You said it was 2002?
Yeah. Yep, 2002. So 22 years ago.
Wow.
Yeah. And I have two nephews. They're both in Phoenix. They're both in construction. And who knows, maybe one day, but, I look after them more financially than anything else, trust-wise with my brother's trust. And then I've got a sister-in-law.
Is that your only sibling?
Yes. Yeah.
Wow.
Right.
So
I'm sorry. I have a sister that is in Phoenix and in Scottsdale.
Okay. So that really wasn't that long ago.
No.
22 years.
Yeah.
And so you had to step up and take over the company.
Yeah, I was president. Let me think back. I became president of the company in 2000. He effectively semi-retired at that point. More was, let's call it the CEO, but more doing business development. And he loved doing all kinds of charity related things, especially children's charities. So, but to be honest, not well prepared to run the entire company at that, at that stage in my career. I just wasn't. You get thrown into it and sometimes when you don't have a choice, the only way to go is forward. So that's what you do.
I'm curious, like looking back, what were one or two things that you had to get really good at really quickly that you weren't prepared for?
I don't know if it was so much running the business side of it. It was, I think it's just, the whole in the family more than anything else. I mean, that was, I would say that was probably it looking back on it. It was, he had effectively semi-retired. I mean, he would probably work 20, 25 hours a week. But he did a lot of the public relations, a lot of the business development. He had a ton of relationships. And so that came easy. He didn't have to work that, hard for that. So I had to shift into that. We brought, folks in to help with that aspect of the business as well.
So let's stick with Burke for a bit. I know you here in Las Vegas, but you're not just here. Tell me,
right?
Kind of,
I would say
the company.
Yeah, a regional company. We're licensed in 26 states. We're in and out of Southern California, in and out of Phoenix in particular. We will go back to South Texas in 25 and stay in South Texas, probably in the San Antonio area, and they have an office up in the Dakotas. So we are pretty nimble when it comes to work with clients that take us to other locales. We have, for instance, we do a lot of charter schools, and we have a group that we work out of Phoenix, and we've done multiple charter schools. We're going to go to South Carolina to build a charter school for them, and we're pretty adept at doing that. We learned that, I would say, as a result of the GFC, the Great Financial Crisis, where we had to get very mobile. We opened an office up in North Dakota, and North Dakota is a very difficult place to build logistically and weather. And so you have to get really adept at dealing with that. In the winter, the sun may shine 4 to 5 hours. And that's a different, that puts a different stress on employees. And until you start to really figure out how to do that, and we learn from the oil and gas companies that are world-class at doing it. So, but we're really adept at, dropping in, and we built a project in Lower Manhattan in Soho. We built in New Jersey. We built in Chicago. So we're pretty good at doing that.
When you say in and out, it's what you talked about. It's a client has a project and you're their company, so they take you with them.
Correct. Or a series of projects that they may have us do that will go down. But I mean, we effectively at this point could span anywhere in the United States. But having done that myself, in the Great Financial Crisis, I traveled nonstop for 5 years. I would literally leave on a Saturday or Monday, and I'd try to make it home on a Thursday. Most times it would be on a Friday. So, you do what you need to do. That's hard, and it's really hard on, the family. So we pulled that way in to where
you did that to keep the operations going where you guys were.
We did that to drive revenue and protect jobs. We just simply said we aren't going to, lay anybody off in that time period in the Great Financial Crisis. You lay them off, you lay them into a bankruptcy, right? I mean, that's, to be blunt, that's what would happen. And we said, look, we won't lay anybody off, but you have to travel with us, and we will go wherever we can drive, profitable work. And that we went to a number of different places to be able to do that. But the travel is, it's a tough thing to ask people to do to, travel to some very one-off locations.
Mm-hmm. That's some serious resolve.
Well, it's when you don't have, you can have a lot of clarity when you don't have a lot of choices, and the only way to do is, go forward. So that's what we did, right? Look, there was a number of us here. We got trapped in this market, I would say. But at that time, there was not a lot of work in many places. There were just a little bit of work in a number of different places, and you had to get very nimble to try to find it.
How big is the company, headcount wise?
We're 107 people today. We'll do this year about 280 million. Next year will be about 320. So we're on the Engineering News Record. ENR rates the top 400. So we're in the top 400 contractors in the country now.
Got to feel proud.
Well, it's look, we're in a great city. do it.
That interesting how in the recession we weren't, and now we totally are.
We should be very proud of this city, this state, to continue to evolve as a city. I mean, it goes back to, we were gaming, and then it was gaming and hospitality, and then it was it evolved from that to entertainment, and then now it's an experience economy. It is amazing, this city, how we're able to do it. I sit back at times in awe, and we all benefit from it. That tide just keeps coming in now. So we're just riding that tide, if you think about it.
Let me ask you this. So all that's true, and it's remarkable. And so we're looking at the gratitude side of the ledger, so to speak, about our city. And then it's easy to say, well, we're lowest in education, our healthcare is crap. How do you sort of think about those two together?
Well, look, it both can be true at the same time, right? And it is true. We have to fix education. We could talk a whole nother podcast on that, because you
have a solution?
Well, I think part of it is school districts are set by state statute, and they're set by county. And the problem is Clark County School District keeps getting bigger. There's good people there, without question.
It's just too big to manage.
It's just too big, and it keeps getting bigger. So think of it as, the problem today is tough. And in 5 years, it'll be even worse, because it just keeps getting bigger.
The analogy back to your business in the recession, you had this big thing to wrap your arms around, and you brought it back. Same kind of thing with the school district, in a way. We need to bring it to a manageable size.
Yeah. I look, there's some ideas out there. One of them is let municipalities form their own district. It could be, let's just say it could be Summerlin, Henderson. It's complicated, because then you've got you can't have, a school maybe in a more affluent area needs less resources, financial resources, than maybe a school in the inner city that needs more resources, right? So you have to work through the funding model of that, but letting the school district get bigger is not a solution. It hasn't been a solution.
You think we're going to get there?
Well, I was part of a group that tried to go with a ballot initiative. My wife and I put a lot of money into that initiative, and unfortunately, we didn't get the signatures we needed throughout the state. So we were ultimately not successful. I don't think it'll go through in a bill draft, because I think politically, the parties won't let that happen. But what I've been told is they wouldn't have a choice on a ballot initiative. But ballot initiatives are time consuming and expensive.
That's not in your bio that you did that with your wife, by the way. How much more is not in your bio that you did?
Well, again, I tend to be a private person. I don't wear it on my sleeve, because ultimately, like in terms of education, is we need to do it for the children, but we also need to do it because of smart business. So we need to do it.
Yeah, I thought years ago, it's not today's problem, but years ago, the problem for economic development, the economic development agencies would say a couple things. One, the executives that we want to come here, maybe them or their spouses don't know that there's a city beyond the strip. So they bring them here, they show it to them. Then the biggest objection was, I'm not moving my kids into that school district because it's so low. I thought, okay, that's, we know how to be a world-class city. We've done it in several different things. Kind of like what you said about leadership is leadership. World-class is world-class. You can break it down and study it and put yourself on a trajectory to be world-class. What if we were world-class K through 12 education?
Yeah.
Sounds realistic, right?
Look, I'm an optimist. I think eventually the pain will get high enough to where we will find ourselves with no choice. Back to the GFC, when you don't have choices, you can get really creative. And I think if we could just get there, I understand it's complicated. I get it. I get the politics. I understand, but it doesn't mean it's not the right thing to do. So hopefully we can get there.
Yeah.
If that bell initiative comes around again.
And why not? I mean, this is a worthy thing that we should all get behind.
Yep.
So we talked about some stuff not on your bio. What is in your bio? I'm going to quote, Burke's portfolio includes projects completed for iconic brands such as Credit One Bank, Tesla, Amazon, UNLV. Legacy Traditional Schools, Gardner Group, WNBA Las Vegas Aces, Sotheby's International, CBRE, Colliers, DraftKings. MDL Group's not in here for some reason, but that's okay. But what's not in here also is another iconic brand called Walmart, which I understand you have a very special relationship with.
Let's say I'm a fan of Amazon, not Walmart. Yeah, not a fan. We had done untold projects. I'm probably 12 to 15 ground up stores for them, numerous remodels. We worked a 5-state region, and not a fan of their culture. Now, I since then I think it's gotten better, but back when we were doing that work for them, it was a very transactional culture there. You could be selling cans of corn or construction; it didn't matter to them. And we had a project up north of Everett in an area called the Convergence Zone. It's the wettest part of the United States up there. It starts raining in October. Literally doesn't stop raining until April or May. And it's a pretty insular area of the country. They didn't like Walmart. Walmart was going to put out some businesses up there, and they didn't like it. Walmart did not get the permits on time, and we got caught between getting we were right on a state highway, and not to go into the details of it, but it got very complicated, and the project got delayed by a couple of years. And up there, you have to treat water. All the water's got to be treated because it's constantly raining. So it was a pretty sizable claim, and we resolved everything except we had a big heavy highway contractor working for us, and they wanted to cut them loose, and I just said not on our watch. So it took us several years to get
you, as
through
the GC, had somebody working for you, and Walmart said,
who had a big claim.
Okay, so they had a claim against Walmart.
Yep, a very legitimate claim.
Okay,
caused by all these delays, and Walmart just didn't want to see it that way. I think the project was a very tough development for them. I get that. I mean, but
what do you mean by cut them loose?
They just wanted to essentially say we're going to reject the claim and all the merits to the claim, which was really.
You're stuck in the middle because you're the general contractor?
Well, I wouldn't say stuck in the middle. It's our responsibility.
So explain how that works with the general contracting industry.
Well, right. So we contracted with Walmart, and we had they were the biggest heavy highway guy in that, or a company in the region. Happened to be a women-owned business as well. And we needed the power and the strength of that company because it was a big, complicated site. So, absolutely the right choice. And then here comes the delays and the weather, and part of the import, the dirt, if you will, for the site got trapped in this right of way, which we couldn't access. So it's trapped because NDOT or WashDOT said you can't touch that dirt until you have the permits, and we weren't in charge of the permits. That was Walmart. So you work through that. It's complicated. It's messy, and I get that. But they simply said we're not going to pay anything, and it just wasn't the right thing to do. I knew it wasn't the right thing to do.
Okay, so they don't want to pay them through you, and you're saying, well,
yeah, we were going to support. You have to do what's right. Yeah.
You could have said okay,
yeah,
and then what? So then. That contractor sues you or sues Walmart? Well,
they would have filed a lien on the project, and then.
But you basically stood up for the little guy, so to speak, or little gal.
Yeah. There wasn't a little company, but it just wasn't the right thing to do. And in the end, after multiple mediations, we prevailed, and I think 94% of the claim was perfected and paid, and it just was the right thing to do, and so. Back to Walmart, it was just, I would say that's the culture. The Burke family does not shop at Walmart. We shop at, we love Amazon. Who's a client?
Oh, that's funny. All right. So now you co-founded Matter in 2018.
Yeah.
Why do that now? Another thing for Kevin to do?
Yeah. So it was, Jim Stewart and Matt Root are, first of all, dear friends, really like brothers to me. Our families are super close. We've have taken untold vacations together. Essentially, our daughters and Matt's son, they all grew up together, mainly in equestrian. All the daughters rode, And we were doing a ride from San Francisco to San Diego. It's called the Challenged Athletes $1 Million Challenge, MDC.
Mm-hmm.
And so on that ride, you have a lot of time to train for it because it's 650 miles, about 28,000 feet of climbing. Yeah, riding a bike. And so we started talking about, kind of skill sets. And at that time, we had exited Perch. Jim and I were doing that together with a group. And we decided, God, we have all this experience. Jim is really the developer. Matt is a expert in capital markets and financial engineering, and had a fixed asset company. Right? They owned, I think at that time, probably 5 million feet of office and retail between Hawaii, California, Texas, and Colorado.
Fixed asset
Arizona.
Is what?
Like an office buildings, retail centers, big, but not a developer, right?
Okay, got it.
Right. So they're
not taking things out of the ground.
Correct.
They're buying it after the fact.
But literally on that ride, we decided, God, we could try this. It could be fun. Jim was candidly, I don't know if he said this on his, but he was looking for something to do. Matt and I were busy, and we're like, but this could be fun, and it could be fun to do it together. Let's try. So we did the first building was industrial building out at Craig and 15. We so overperformed because we just didn't want to make a mistake, and we did extremely well. We built the building, sold it before we finished it to a single building user.
What year was that?
That was probably in 16 or 17, I'm going to think, that time period. We did MDC in 16, so it was 16, 17. So let's say it was 17. And so we decided, that went really well, right? I mean, we obviously,
nothing like a home run right out of the gate.
Exactly. Right? But look, the market was primed to be able to succeed in it. Each one of us has a different skill set. So we thought, let's go do this again. But the whole idea was we were just going to kind of do this incrementally until we just started to have a lot of fun at doing it and got pretty good at doing it. And so now, you look back and we've done over $1 billion worth of development and including uncommons. We developed the WNBA ACES facility for Mark Davis, done some really cool projects. And then, industrial is something we're really good at. And then of course, mixed use is something that, all three of us know a lot about. So, when Jim started to assemble the land off market for uncommons and he started to, think and ideate around that, we had been to multiple mixed use centers when we had the Perch company. So, we were all over the country. All those Perch stores were in these big, iconic, battleship, integrated mixed use projects. And, so it immediately we, fell in love with the idea. So it was, and we're still at it, right? We've got 2/3 of it now, built and effectively leased, and we've got another big phase of residential to go, and then one more commercial site, and then, actually 2 more commercial sites within the property.
That's uncommons.
That's uncommons.
What else does Matter have that are active projects?
Right now it's uncommons. We have, I would say, things in the pipeline. Don't want to discuss that here today.
Don't you have an industrial project up north going?
We do. Yeah. We have 1 million square feet just south of the Speedway. It's a great location.
Yeah.
That we probably the best industrial project we've done to date. It's institutional grade at every level, and then we have, I would say, the new ideas in the pipeline that we're thinking about now. But we've been patient because of interest rates and where the market is. When you think of development, it's been a tough few years for developers. You got interest rates that run like they did. You've got cost escalation has just gone, it's calmed down now, but it's at a very elevated rate now. Things are so expensive and you can't make mistakes in this market.
So Jim did say he was looking for something to do, and you and Matt were kind enough to go along. He talked about the three of you, creative, capital, and construction. Of course, he put them with 3 C's. I think Perch had a similar like discover, play, buy or something like that.
Yeah.
It was like a 3-legged deal. I think about this so you've got Burke Construction. It's really smart for you to start a development company and effectively be your own client. Any thoughts on that? Or
It is.
Is there
it
a
was,
risk on the other side?
Well, there is
mitigated risk.
It's risky. I mean, it's Burke has contracts. I mean, they're market contracts. You're
taking double risk in a way, right?
Effectively,
you're putting money in as a developer, and you're the contractor.
Correct. Right. But it gives you more visibility, in particular, into how the project is financed, the success, what the risk criteria are, what you're looking at. It gives you a much better insight into the risk of the project. And candidly, as a contractor, sometimes you take projects and you don't even understand that risk because you don't have a seat at that table.
Oh, interesting.
But it matter. We certainly do, and we all have a voice. We often say we need 3 green lights. If you get 2 and one's not, we're not going to do it.
So I saw an email sent by an attorney that knows Jim when Jim was getting back into development, so to speak. It was like a friends and family kind of an email. I didn't come to me. I knew someone that it went to, and I got to see it. The attorney was gushing over Jim, remarkable person, experienced in some of his projects that he did previously with Centra. I'm an unabashed fan. I think it said something to that effect. And so here he comes into the market, and you guys started with industrial, like you talked about, did great with your first project.
Yeah.
There's another project. Here's the lore in the market, because I'm in commercial real estate. I hear things. You had another project that you were building. It wasn't that first one. It was, I think, maybe the second one or third that you guys had in escrow, right? It was in escrow before COVID. And the buyer, see, a pandemic happens, and the buyer's like, whoa, we don't think we can move forward. And they walked on $1 million of earnest money. That's probably a rational decision at the time.
Yeah.
And then what nobody could have seen is the run up in warehousing space and prices and cap rates go down. And you guys, here's the story. The story is you guys sold it for $50 million more than what it was in escrow for.
Well, the lore is partly true. We were actually on a Matter mile marker trip. We every year.
What is the mile marker trip?
Mile marker trip.
Crazy MFers with the mile marker trip.
Is Jim's idea. Look, this is his program. Any broker that does a deal, sells us land, does a tenant, could be 2,000 square foot tenant, doesn't matter. You do a deal with Matter, we're going to take you on an all expenses paid trip, and they're pretty fantastic. We just got back from Hamilton, Montana, fishing, horseback riding, pickleballing,
private
hiking,
chef. I heard
private chef. And that's the area where they filmed the TV series Yellowstone. It's beautiful up there. So we happened to be on a mile marker trip in La Paz, Mexico, swim with whale sharks, and we were on a boat. And we had to jump on a call, and it was Matt and Jim. I don't know where Jim was. It was Matt and I, and we got that news, and we were thinking, that was a problem.
This is the news where the buyer's backing out.
Yeah, exactly. He's going to back out. We have $1 million, but he's still tied up our real estate for a period of time. So that was the $1 million non-refundable. And then, we all know how it went from there. Matt got to work, capital markets. With the Colliers team, their capital markets team, we put the project back out. We had more leasing done I think at that time. If I remember, they were buying it. It was maybe half leased. And then, we caught a home run in the market. I don't know if it was quite 50 million, but it was a good day. You remember those days?
50 million more is what I heard.
Well, it wasn't quite 50 million, but it was a big number. But you need those to withstand these run-ups in interest rates, because it's not so fun now.
So really, like, back to the whiskey thing, you really know, for me, a whiskey, I could tell you, all right, try this, and you try it, and all right, you get a sense for it. But if I say, try this and contrast it to this, you really start to get an appreciation for one or the other
Yeah.
when there's a contrast. So I teed that up for the contrast of you guys are hitting grand slams, one project after another with Matter. It's everything you touch turns to gold. And now you take on this project Uncommons, and even that one, it's going extremely well. Office pre-leasing, meaning a developer builds an office building and they pre-lease it. Didn't exist in Las Vegas for many years. It was a bad word.
Right.
You build the office building and then we will lease it from you when we know it's there. That's sort of how it's been. But this project starts and now you're pre-leasing office. That's remarkable.
Yeah.
The tenants that you guys are securing, amazing. Like Salt and Straw as an example. They opened their first location out of California here, I guess, is the story. You guys are trucking along, project's killing it. Seems like another grand slam. And then in the paper, I think it was last month, Sundry closes.
Yep.
So it's not all a grand slam, like you were saying. It's like you need those to offset these. But, people in the community, they watch companies like yours and maybe they'll say, oh, yeah, we've got this land tied up. We're going to hire Gensler. That's the architect you guys hire.
Right.
It seems so easy. We're going to hire Gensler. We're going to build this thing and it's going to be amazing. We're all going to be like Kevin and Jim and Matt, right? But talk through some of those challenges that you're facing at Uncommons.
Yeah, I have this saying: everything looks easy if you don't have to do it. And we knew. I think we knew Uncommons was going to be hard. Having spent a lot of time across the country at these integrated mixed use centers, that in particular Jim and I, spent time in and built in the Perch stores. When we set off this path, if you just take this back, and we probably should be drinking tequila when I tell you the story. I may need it to get through it. Hayim, but
I have some.
Yeah.
I don't know if you would appreciate my level of tequila, but it's called Don Abraham. It's pretty good.
But if you think we were set to break ground on the project in April of 20, so just, take that back, COVID-19 COVID-19 really started in February, I think, of 20. We were set to break ground in April, and then the world changed. And so the question was, we had asked a lot of questions that we didn't have the answers to, but we had strong conviction. Each one of us did independently that, the first one was, are we going to solve COVID? And if we don't, there is no point. So you might as well put all your chips on the table because that's not going to happen. Right. So we thought we're going to solve that. I believe that office would always be a center point for Uncommons, and you have to have an office. You can't. I've run multiple businesses. You can't run a business on Zoom. You can't run a business where you can't be
this
around.
Is blasphemy.
People. Yeah, I know. Yeah, imagine that.
Sorry, keep going.
For somebody that actually runs business. Now, people, I was never one that got on that train that I get the hybrid work environment. That's always been there. But to think that you could actually do it without an office, I'm not in that camp. So we believe that. The question was, what are they going to come back to? And so we paused in that time period, and then we went to work, and literally we were working, 16, 18 hours a day. I, in particular, was trying to figure out from how can we make this campus safer? So we spent a lot of time with experts on air infiltration. We pivoted to a well building environment.
That's a certification.
That's a certification. It really focuses more on the user. Part of that is air quality, light pollution, having areas for that you go, quiet places, so forth and so on. So we spent a lot of time doing that. And then the moment came to said, are we going to move forward with this? Now, again, we're still in COVID. The strip was shut down. And I'll give Ethan Penner, who is our main financial partner, he says, look, it's your call. I believe in you guys. If you go, we go. Now, who would say that, right?
But that's both like a boost of confidence and a oh shit moment.
Yeah, like I wish he wouldn't have said that. I wish Dad would have said no, right? So I would say then we said we're going to go forward. We believe we need to do this. For me, the benefit of if we could say yes was that we'd be able to create a lot of construction jobs. So that was a little bit selfish on my side, is that I know all the trades that we would have out there, because there was a lot of construction that did get shut down. And, we could move forward with this project. And then, so you get over that hump, and then here comes a global recession. And then here comes supply chain constraints that I've never seen in my career. And then here comes rampant cost escalation, and then interest rates run. And then, so it's not, it hasn't been easy. There's not an easy day out there, and it shouldn't be, because it's a hard thing to do. People have asked us many times, do you think anybody else will do another one of these? Not, it is hard to do these well, integrated like we have done it. Besides, you can't get the land assembled in the right location. We believe we're at Main and Main from a location standpoint, but these are really, really hard to do in this environment.
So on the execution side, back to you specifically, you've got double risk in this. You've got the developer side and you're the contractor. What are some of the, is there a specific that you're allowed to talk about or want to talk about as a contractor that you've surprised you, or didn't see that coming, or a challenge that you ran into that someone not doing it, right? Everything's easy if you don't have to do it. Someone not doing it wouldn't even know about.
Well, I would say, and this is not specific to Uncommons, I'll give you a couple examples. One of them would be in that time period where a lot of people were working remotely. That is very difficult in the AEC industry, architectural engineering construction. And when you have people working remotely, it is not the same. You don't have as much cohesiveness in that time period. And it is very difficult to do that because people aren't as attuned to the issues, and I would say have situational awareness of what's going on to be able to make quicker calls. And even though, we have virtual design and construction, we fly the drones every week, we have helmet cams, you go into a building, you've got so much technology, but it's still very, very difficult to do. And I was on a panel a couple of months ago and we were talking about execution risk. I've never seen the execution risk in our industry, in the AEC industry, as high as I've seen it today. Never seen it this high. I just hope that it gets better, but I don't believe it's going to get better.
Describe what that is, execution risk.
Well, it's just the ability to essentially take, if you think of it as, in a very simplistic terms, a developer or owner has a vision for a project. An AE team, architectural engineering, will interpret the vision into essentially a set of drawings, or really these days it's a building model, it's a 3D model, and then the contractor builds from that model. The hole that's in that right now is pretty large, and you've got to work really hard to bring that together so that the vision that is articulated, hopefully with a lot of clarity, but sometimes not, is understood by the AE team, and then they can eventually put that into a model, and then the contractor can bring that together so that everybody is working in concert with one another. It's a challenging time in the industry. Record low unemployment doesn't help. We've been on this long run in our industry for 11 years now, 12 years. 2011, give you a quick data point. 2011, the U.S. construction industry, residential, non-residential, commercial infrastructure was $800 billion. 23, it was $2 trillion. With a few, bumps along the way, but that's a massive run. It's not a 5-year run with a correction, a 7-year run with a correction. That's been a long run. So it's back to running. We've been running, at a sprint pace, but we need to get through a marathon that's still not over. So that's part of what's going on. Record low unemployment, record volumes in our industry, and industries are struggling to keep up.
So now jump to the developer side. What is a challenge that you guys are facing to really bring this project to life?
Well, we've been blessed from a leasing standpoint. Our office leasing is stronger than we had anticipated it would be. I think our you think of it this way, our thesis of the project of what people want to come back to, I think we really hit that well and hit it extremely well. What has been hard is the food and beverage folks, because they went through the GFC, great financial crisis. They lost a lot of money trying to keep their restaurants open or people employed. And they don't necessarily have the capital now. And then costs run on them. So it's a tough, if you're a restaurant owner, an entrepreneur restaurant, it's tough right now because costs are as high as they've ever been for them. It's hard to raise money. And then we at Matter try to wrap our arms around them to help them through that entire process. That's something that I didn't think we were going to need to do, but we have to do it. And it's the right thing to do, but that's hard.
It's all hard.
Yeah.
We'll switch gears here a bit. Yeah, I understand you are an extreme traveler.
We love adventure traveling. And
is that actually the category? Is that what it's called?
Well, it's adventure travel. So we've done some pretty aggressive trips. My wife and I. My wife, as I mentioned, grew up in Spain. She grew up when she was a kid traveling all over Europe. But we like to get out and not do touristy things. We like to get out and kind of push the limits. And a few years ago, we hiked in the up in Uganda in a very remote place next to the Congo border to the silverback gorillas. One of the hardest hikes I've ever done in my life. And it was so moving. And over Thanksgiving, we're going to go down to Patagonia to some eco resort and go off grid hiking and climbing a glacier, more kind of trekking, if you will. So we really, while we have our health and we're fit, we want to go and explore the world and not necessarily to tourist destinations. So
where does that come from for you? I mean, you said your wife grew up traveling.
I would say we're both curious. Really, we're just curious, and you can only get so much reading about a book. You got to experience the world, and the only way to do it is you got to go there. You gotta, we were in Morocco a few years ago and wanted to understand about the Muslim religion and hired a university professor that was our tour guide the whole time. So it was like being in a college class while we were there.
That's cool.
Yeah.
All right, let's do some rapid fire takeaways. I understand you love the book Team of Teams. What's the book and what are some key takeaways?
So I mentioned my father was career military, so that I really identify with that. The one thing that we identify with on the construction side is the concept of shared consciousness. And it's a really kind of a fancy way of saying you have to understand a vision. You have to get people to buy into the vision so people can act independently without having to be told what to do. So in the military, they call it the commander's intent. So if you understand what needs to be done, you understand the mission and you understand what we're trying to accomplish, you should be empowered to make your own decisions. And that's super important for us in construction. There's a lot of parallels between our business and the military. We have a lot of people in the military in construction. So that's a big, for me, that's a big takeaway from that book. Love that book.
So I'm a new CEO. What are the first three things that you would advise me to do or focus on?
I would say people. It's
that's one.
No, that's three. Because it's your staff, your team. You could be your senior management team. You got to build trust with them. They've got to trust you. You can't lead people that they don't trust you and believe in you. You got to spend time with your clients. It's same thing. They got to know you. They got to believe that you're going to put their interests first, not at your deficit, but they've got to really know that. So it's to me, it's always it is that today. Even for me, I've been doing this a long time. It always comes back to the people.
So how do you, with all the commitments that you have, make sure that you're spending the time necessary with your people and with your clients? How do you do that?
Look, the easy answer is just time management. It's, set your priorities. Don't get pushed off. of your priorities. And you got to be disciplined with that, because it's easy to go down into rabbit holes and get involved in things that maybe other people can do. I'm blessed because we have a very experienced senior management team on our construction side that have been together on their matter side. I mean, Jim and Matt and I can finish every conversation almost without guessing. And so I can do that because I'm able to run efficiently. 20 years ago, not the case. But today, because we've got seasoned organizations on both sides, much easier today.
How does somebody cultivate a curiosity for world travel?
Ooh, I actually don't think you can cultivate curiosity. You're either curious or you're not. I would say you got to read, you got to be, but I would say you just got to be curious about the world and have it's like anything else. It's choices. And I can just tell you from traveled a lot and experienced different, cultures and people and things like that. The only way to know it is go there, because it is not what at times people perceive it to be.
So for someone who's never left the United States, what are the first 3 destinations you would recommend?
I would say the world cities. It's London, Paris, and Rome. If you've never left the United States, London, Paris, Rome.
In your bio is this thing called YPO Gold. What is YPO Gold, and how does somebody get involved with that?
Yeah, so it's actually YPO. When you turn 50, they call you either platinum or gold. They just give us a name other than, and I'm not 50 anymore. It's an international business organization. I can tell you any success that I have had, I owe a large part to YPO, because it's peer group learning of CEOs of certain size of companies. So I want to say you have to have at least 50 employees and revenues of, let's say, I think it's 25 million. You have to be invited in, but then when you get in, it is an incredible lifetime experience. Incredible. So there's probably 140,000 YPOers across the world. So no matter where I go in the world, I could call up, and I have a chapter member that I maybe have some commonality with, and I can get help. If somebody calls me up and they're coming into town, which has happened multiple times, people, and sometimes somebody got sick and they need help, within 24 hours you respond.
So I kind of asked you this. I'm going to ask again, but maybe with a little more refinement. My question is, how do you make time for Burke, Matter, and all the extracurricular activities? You sort of just said, well, it's just easy time management. Is it just easy time management? And if it is, what are some techniques that you have for time management?
Yeah, I would say it starts with, it's a choice, right? It really is a choice. It's just, I'm going to relate it to your training. You got to choose to train. And it's hard. And there's days you don't want to get up and train. And there's days and weeks, maybe I don't want to get up and work the hours. But I would say, first of all, it's a choice. Align, your expectations with what you're willing to do. To me, that's a big thing, which is, as they say, it's not what you're capable of, it's what you're willing to do. And as long as you, I think, have that in line, I choose to work a lot of hours, but that's my choice. And I would say largely that's how I fit a lot of that in, and still having, quality time, which is super important to me with my family. And, but I would say it's not the hours, it's the quality of the time that we spend together. But we could spend a lot of time on it. To me, it first and foremost starts with the choice. It's just, are you willing to make the sacrifice? Because there's times where I would love to be more out on my bike or fly fishing or doing other things. And so it's just a life choice.
You kind of talked about this. I'm curious, is there a takeaway looking back on the global Great Recession, what Burke had to do to survive?
Wow. We've used this internal to our company because we identify, I think it was the explorer Cortez, to properly motivate. He was a Spanish explorer. He came to the New World, and to properly motivate his men, he burned the ships in the harbor. It's, famous quote. I don't know if it's true or not, but he's accredited with that. when you don't have choices, you can get really creative. It's super stressful, but I would say you get creative because you look as a CEO or a business owner and you think, all those employees are counting on you to be the smart one. And, you're at times you're terrified. I didn't have the answers. I would say this, and Frank Martin of Martin Harris is my neighbor. And he and I have joked about this over the years. Is in those years, I would get up and I literally can see into his house, even though we live quite a ways away, and I'd just see if the lights are on. And it was my own little, because it was the lights are on. God damn, I need to get up earlier tomorrow, right? And it was just a silly thing. And we joked about it because he was in the same,
it's like the Larry
right?
Bird, Magic Johnson
exactly
thing.
Right. And you would just you get creative, and I mean really creative. You ask your people, first of all, you're honest with your people and say, look, I don't have all the answers, and we together are going to figure this out, but I'll shoulder this, but I need your help because we don't have a lot of options here to stay here. So we're going outside of Nevada for our opportunities. And we did. And I'm proud to say we never laid off one person. But you get creative. We got into the man camp business, which is a crazy business to be in.
What's that?
Well, the man camp, I've have a history in oil and gas, and we got this call one day. So it was just one of the greatest calls that I got in that time period. We had El Paso Oil and Gas called us and said, we talked to somebody in the state, and they said, well, you could build this. And I'm like, well, first of all, you're going to build something? You got full attention. So long story made short, there was a big gas pipeline going across northern Nevada, way up an hour and a half north of Burning Man. And they needed somebody to build this temporary employee housing camp, operate it, and then decommission it, and then recontour the land because you're under the FERC, the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission. So what we did in that time period, we just went up there and we just said, we can do this. We didn't know how the hell we were going to do it, but we got our partner in Houston, who fabricated these essentially modular units, and we went up and built it. It was 160 acres. We built it, operated it, and at the end of it, we ended up with these units. We owned them, us and our partner. And then we had one there and one in Oregon, and then that's how we got into North Dakota. And then we opened up our own man camp up there. We realized now we had a premium opportunity because we could control our housing, which we could control our labor force. So when we went up there, we weren't like everybody else just looking for something to do. Wow. And we had assets, and they're like, how can we help you? So we built the camp. We put Schlumberger and FedEx and I think Baker Hughes was in the camp along with our construction people. And then we went on a great run up in North Dakota building because we controlled our manpower and that particular was housing, because there was no housing up there.
Like, what a remarkable evolution.
Yeah.
Of events that created.
All because we got a call from somebody in the state, which I never figured out who it was, so I couldn't thank him. But it was, that was one of those stories. So.
Awesome. Well, what's a final takeaway that you want to share with everybody?
Well, look, Hayim, I know it took us some time to get this organized. I actually officiated Jim Stewart's middle daughter's wedding in London, and I had to prepare for that and write the ceremony. So it's like, how did I get volunteer?
I got to add wedding official too.
Yeah, I was a wedding official. Very English wedding, by the way.
Did you do it in an accent?
I did not, but I did stay.
Disappointing.
I did stay the course though, and kept it prim and proper, as I was told. But look, I appreciate the opportunity. I'm not real comfortable telling my own personal story. I can talk about my businesses and projects and clients, but to peek inside of me as a person, I'm pretty guarded when it comes to that. So I appreciate the opportunity and your patience to be able to do this with you. It's been super fun.
I appreciate your willingness to do it. There's a lot to unpack and understand with you. I mean, you're a really fascinating guy. The resolve that you have in your approach, not just to your business, but to your life, is, I think, something that not just me, but anybody listening can take away from. And apply for themselves. So thank you for doing this. Thank you for listening. I would love to hear from you about your takeaways from this episode. Make sure to leave us a comment or leave us a review. Also, please subscribe to our YouTube channel so you can hear future episodes as they come out. My name is Hayim Mizrahi. Tune in next time.